My
Uh,
name is Kate, and I am a graduate assistant for the Institute for International Business at CU Denver, and I will be interviewing Katie Gerwitz.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Gerwitz. I am a training and development specialist at Ball Corporation. And what that really means, Ball Corporation is a global company, but what I focus on is we have 23 manufacturing facilities in North and Central America, making cans, ends, which are the lids, and bottles. So I work mainly on the development and deployment of different training programs and learning experiences for about 5,000 manufacturers.
Could you tell me a little bit more about yourself? What you like to do
Sure,
for
yeah.
fun?
Yeah, a lot of times, like that's what I love about living in Colorado, and that my company at Ball Corporation is headquartered here in Colorado because I love to hike and bike and snowshoe and do all of those things for fun, as well as just spend any time outdoors, and the sun shines like crazy here. So, really exciting place to live and to work, and just to kind of see the development that we see here in Colorado. A lot of big companies moving in and a lot of job opportunities, both kind of domestic and global. And then I live just outside of Denver, just west of Denver in Westminster. And I just have a little pet bunny rabbit and have my husband here. No kids, but enjoy a lot of fun time with my friends' kids.
Cool, thank you. Can you tell me a little bit more about your academic background?
Yeah, definitely. So I got my undergrad in education. So I actually started out my career in teaching. So I spent about 10 years teaching, and that's what my bachelor's gave me. So I had a bachelor's in middle school education with a minor in math. I've always been very technical in nature. I've always enjoyed the maths and sciences, kind of that STEM, if you will. And then I guess it was about 5 years into my career that I really wanted to pursue my master's. So, and one thing too, as I decided what type of master's I wanted to get, I really looked at what I liked doing. And what I really love doing is building curriculum and building learning experiences. So while I was deploying it because I was a teacher, what I really enjoyed was actually developing it and what kind of learning experiences I wanted for my students. So I ended up getting my master's at the time I was living in New Orleans, Louisiana. So I got my master's in curriculum and instruction from the University of New Orleans. So graduated with that in the fall of 2017, and that was actually when I decided to make the move from kind of the academic teaching, if you will, to corporate teaching. And I utilized my master's for that.
Would you say that that transition was hard for you to change majors or switch up that quickly?
I would say yeah, yes and no. I think that with my master's and really with that focus of adult education when I was doing my curriculum and instruction master's, it I was already teaching high school, so they're kind of adults anyway. So kind of applying some of the learnings that I had while I was teaching because I was getting my master's and still working. So I was able to kind of use some of those principles and test them out with, seniors in high school and juniors in high school, but then really actually making that leap from that academia to corporate, it it was tough, but also wasn't. So I think the biggest piece was I definitely did a lot of informational interviews to understand, because when we talk about corporate learning, there's so many elements to it. It can be curriculum development. It can be actually like facilitation, and you can be in front of corporate classrooms and deliver training. So there's so many different layers that I really wanted to understand what I wanted to pursue. So I joined Association for Talent Development so I could learn from other peers and have a formal network, if you will, in addition to doing informational interviews. And so understanding some of the skills that I needed to either build on because, the skills that I learned in my master's, there's a couple tools that I didn't know that I needed to learn on my own. So learn understanding what those were so I could do my own professional development and be prepared to make that corporate leap. But also understanding what skills were transferable and how I needed to understand the corporate lingo versus the academia lingo, and that it's the same thing, but two different phrases, if you will. So I really focused on how do I change my language so that way I can demonstrate my skills and discuss that, but also stay true to who I was. So there was no imposter syndrome. It truly was, these are my skills, these are my talents, and I've been able to learn and grow with that.
What exactly do you do at your position at Ball? Like, what does it entail?
Yeah, it's a really awesome time to be in manufacturing. And really the reason being is because for the longest time manufacturing was one of those things you get hired on, you follow somebody, they teach you everything that they know, and then you know the job. But all of those people are retiring now. And it's kind of across the board in manufacturing, and ball is no different. And so, really, what I do is I focus on what are the skills that we really need to develop within our workforce, both technical and interpersonal. So, understanding not only how to run the equipment, but also to be able to give and receive feedback. So, I work with different plant personnel as well as corporate personnel to make that distinction and understand what are those skills and what are the tasks that need to be developed for those skills. And then from there, I really work with those people even more to build the content then. And as I mentioned, we've got North and Central America. So we have one facility in Canada, we have two facilities in Mexico, and then we've got 20 facilities in the US. And so understanding too, state by state, how some things might differ from, legal reasons or HR reasons, and being able to approach our workforce accordingly, understanding that, and then also country by country, what's certain safety standards that Mexico has that might be, a variation of what we have in the U.S. and understanding some of those nuances and what our workforce really needs. So a lot of my day to day is having a lot of project meetings. Typically within the role that I have, you become a project manager just kind of by accident because I'm truly bringing a lot of different people together in order to get those different perspectives and understand what we really need. Understanding the nuances and what could be standardized, but what might need to be autonomous for our facilities as well. And then, kind of, I have those different meetings. We have recurring meetings, usually once a week for different projects that we're on and touch bases, those types of things. And then, kind of on my downtime, if you will, I'm really working on then building up the content. Okay, this is what they said that they needed. I'm pulling the content, I'm making it make sense, and then following up with the team to make sure that this is what they truly intended for a learning experience for the workforce. And that's one piece of it. Another piece is within our manufacturing facilities, we also have training supervisors. So I work really closely with them because they're the ones truly executing the content that I'm creating, and they're making it happen at their plants, which is really exciting because then I get firsthand experience of what went well, what needs to be improved, so we can have this continuous improvement process with any training that we build. And then also providing some guidance as well. I feel like a lot of times I'm a liaison, if you will, with what the business, from the corporate lens, what we really need to be doing when it comes to training, what's actually happening at the plants, and merging them together and saying, okay, this is the best of both worlds, and we can really execute something awesome with that.
Do you guys have plans of expansion into other countries that you're not currently in?
That's a really good question. I don't actually know. We are in a lot. So North and Central America is just one region, and we're in three countries with that, obviously, because North and Central America is really only three countries. Well, I guess Central America, we do. There are other countries, but we aren't in them yet. But we do have the South America region. We do have our Europe region. So we're in a lot of different countries. And actually, another piece that I didn't share kind of about my job is some of the training and learning experiences that we're building a structure at a global level. And so there are similar positions to mine and my bosses. In the other regions in Europe and in South America. So we actually meet typically monthly and really work together to understand some of those nuances and truly what can be standardized globally, and then what within our regions of North and Central America, South America, and Europe, really what we need to make specific to the region. So like at we are the world's largest aluminum can manufacturing facility company, if you will. So I can imagine more expansion. A lot of the expansion that we have had recently have been in the same countries we've already operated in. For instance, we did just build three plants in the past 2 years within the U.S. In the U.K., there's another plant being built in the U.K., and I think possibly opened up now. I can't remember. But so we already had operations in those countries. So a lot of our expansions lately have been in current countries that we're already in, but that's not to say that we couldn't expand furthermore. And so, only time will tell. And a lot of times I find out about those in email announcements and our town halls as well. That's typically when they share with us if we're opening another plant.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. Um,
Mhm.
does your job involve traveling at all? How often do you travel?
Yeah, it does. For the most part, my travel is pretty contained in the North and Central America region. And lately it's the past with COVID it was a little bit rough because production we needed to keep production. And so therefore, when I was first hired in July of 2020 in the middle of COVID, it was one of those things. Travel was very much restricted. It had to be like you have to be there in order to make something happen, and you really had to get special permission just because we didn't want to spread it. We didn't want to get anybody sick at our plants. And COVID was already running rampant, and we wanted to still, it was also a time where everybody was at home drinking their sodas instead of going to a restaurant and getting a fountain soda. They were getting sodas from the grocery, and so we needed aluminum cans. So it was one of those times where we were in very high demand for production. So I didn't do too much travel in 2020. I did do a little bit when I was first hired because we also started up some plants. So typically, my travel is a couple of times a year. I can foresee that bumping up a little bit. I can't even remember what my job description said for percentage of travel, but now that things are a bit more opened up and we've got a lot of projects rolling out, I can foresee doing more traveling. I know for sure my team alone, we plan on making about 4 to 5 trips each to our different plants. So that way our entire team can end up being at everybody would end up meeting with one plant in 2023. So that's our goal, to kind of divide and conquer with that. And then, I haven't had to do too much travel abroad yet, but, again, only time will tell. We never know what the needs might be, and there might be opportunity for that as well.
What do you and your team really look at when you go to other plants? Like, what does the process look like?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. A lot of times it's meeting first of all with our training supervisor and our training team at that plant level. And typically anytime that I travel, I send out my objectives for the trip and say, hey, this is what I want to accomplish in the time that we have allowed. And I usually communicate that with the plant manager, possibly the production manager, obviously our training team, and maybe even the HR manager too, because sometimes I just want to meet with the different department managers and just learn a little bit more from them, because obviously I get a lot of context from our training teams at the plant, but I'd like to also build relationships with them. So it would vary depending on what the objectives are. Sometimes it's, okay, we're really trying to roll out a pilot in this training experience. So I want to be there to watch it in action and be able to take notes. Sometimes, we've got some vendors that we work with that they give training as well. And sometimes they'll partner with us and let us video record that training. So that way we can use it and divide and conquer. So that way they don't have to do as much travel. So it really depends on the situation. But high level, typically it's meeting with the different department managers, working with our training supervisors and our technical trainers in the plant to make sure that they feel supported, that they have the tools that they need, and to understand if there are any gaps that we need to fill that we can work at the corporate level and be able to fill those gaps.
Cool, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Moving on, what are the biggest challenges you think you face in your position?
That's a really great question. Because I am, we're a small team at the corporate level, and our team is kind of throughout. I am in Colorado, and I work. We have a hybrid situation, so I go into the office 2 to 3 days a week, and I'm at home the other days. And I have, different teammates who are in Arizona, in Florida, in Texas, and so we do a lot of remote meetings. But so I think that is one big challenge, just to have that remote work because my team is everywhere. But in addition, again, I'm serving 23 plants and they're all remote for me. I have one plant in Golden, so I'm able to easily make a 15-minute drive and go spend the day in the plant. But it's also really understanding how to get the work really done, being physically distant from each other. A lot of times we're all aligned as an overall training team and even with our plants, but at the same time it's, you miss kind of that physical connection and being in the same room and being able to brainstorm, and instead you got to do it via WebEx or Zoom or something like that. So I would say that's one challenge. And I think another is, at the end of the day, we want to provide amazing training for our workforce. We want to grow, we want to develop them, and understanding when's the good time to be able to roll out certain training, because at the end of the day we still have to make cans, ends, bottles, and all of that. So it's, being able to work with the plants and understand, when is a good time to roll out training, when's a good time to pull a couple people off the floor, so that way we can make sure that we're still growing and developing them, we're getting them the tools that they need, but also keeping production going. So I would say that's another challenge as well in the manufacturing space, I think in general, just because production is king, and rightly so. It keeps the lights on. But at the same time, we want to also grow our workforce and really help them develop, because our goal is to hire to retire. So we want you walking in on day one and we want you retiring with us. And in order to keep that mentality and keep that mindset, we need to develop our people. And so it's really walking that balance and making sure that we have time for that as well as time for production. So I would say those are kind of my biggest challenges in my role.
Okay, sweet, thank you. Um, what kinds of knowledge, skills, abilities, and experience are the most valuable for job applicants that are looking to work for you?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I sit in you kind of that training space, so for training, it's understanding adult learning theories, it's being able to understand doing a needs analysis and a gap analysis, as well as doing understanding some of those interpersonal skills and doing a lot of listening and how to take that in and how to translate that into something that can be actionable. So, and a lot of times too, it's also the tools of the trade. So when it comes with training, knowing learning management systems, understanding content development tools. Now, I would say in general, just some overarching skills that are really I would say beneficial for any applicant to have for any position, whether it's at ball or otherwise, is having that growth mindset. We don't always have that, because sometimes we get stuck in our ways and we want to do things the way that we used to do them. But at the end of the day, that growth mindset and taking a failure as a learning opportunity instead of beating ourselves up and like I'm not worthy kind of thing, but taking that and saying, huh, this is what I learned from that. I'm going to do it differently next time. So, really focusing on that growth mindset, I think, is huge for any applicant and being able to demonstrate that, to share, a time that they made a mistake, they owned up to it, they, held themselves accountable and they learned from it. So, I think that that's a really genuine skill to have that can make you I guess appealing to the job market. And then, I would say kind of in general with other positions within manufacturing at least, it's understanding that technical piece and being able to, know that technical side, but also understand kind of that interpersonal skills side and being able to blend the two and almost like translate. Sometimes we get very much ingrained in our alphabet soup and we run a lot of 3-letter acronyms and things like that. That understanding being I guess personally aware of, oh, I've got somebody new in the room, I'm going to want to say what TLA means, which is a 3-letter acronym, and really explain that. So I would say some of those skills as well in the manufacturing space of having some of that personal awareness and understanding who your audience is, so that way if you might need to explain something more so than you would if you're with somebody who is more tenured in their role, but then also having some technical abilities as well to be able to kind of, I always say, like, hang with the crowd. Like, I can hang, I understand what y'all are talking about because I have this technical background that I'm coming from, and I've got a certain set of skills that I bring to the table. And then how can we utilize our skills together?
Do you think that your previous experience really set you up for the position you're in now?
I would say so. I spent, like, as I mentioned, I spent 10 years teaching high school math. And so that was kind of that technical piece, right? I understand algorithms. I understand how things work in the technical space. And then I also had that personal piece when it comes to training, and I understood adult learning methods. So with that, from teaching high school math, I actually went and worked for the World Trade Center Denver, and basically helped run our the trade trainings that we would offer, some technical in nature, some not as technical in nature, but I worked with the subject matter experts to really build some good training with that. From that, I got more experience with the manufacturing industry. I had, some friends and family members who worked in manufacturing, but I didn't really understand some of the nuances with that. And so really learning from, because when we offered trainings at the World Trade Center Denver, we would have people from all over the place, many different types of manufacturing in the room, and doing international trade in addition to actually making a product. And so what was really cool is I was able to understand how some of the departments worked and the nuances that came with manufacturing, and understanding certain principles like lean principles that help with efficiencies whenever you're doing production. So I was able to learn a lot of that from that job. And because I have that technical background, I was able to really learn from a lot of different manufacturers then I feel like that really set me up for success when I applied at Ball Corporation because I could speak the language, I could hang because I had worked with a lot of different manufacturers and understood some of their needs, and especially from a training aspect. And then I also had that technical background as well, being a math minor and teaching it. And then finally, understanding the adult learning principles and being able to understand too that my audiences would be different. Anytime I'm teaching somebody how to run a machine, that's a little bit different than teaching somebody how to, navigate through this system. Those are two different types of skill sets, two different types of approaches. And I understand the differences on how to approach that. So I would say a lot of my background, even 7 years ago, I would not have been set up for success at Ball Corporation. But it was like right place, right time. And that's what I always tell job seekers too, is anytime you're or and even anybody in undergrad or graduate school, sometimes the experience that you get in different elements of the workforce, like sometimes you might not get that job. And maybe it's for the best because you got a different job that meets the need that you have right then and there. Because I feel like all the experiences that I've had, I've been able to build up those skills and it was right place, right time. And I'm working at a place that I really love and I'm seeing a difference.
You said that you guys are a hybrid format. Do you like working that way, or would you prefer to be in person or remote?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say for the corporate standpoint, we are hybrid. And you know there are days where I'm like, oh, it's so nice to be able to work from home because I've got to do some work that I really can't be interrupted. And if somebody's in the cube next to me and it's like, peeking over or whatever, that would kind of interrupt my flow, if you will, with some of the work that I needed to do. So there's some days that I'm like, yeah, it's so nice to be able to work from home, but I also really love being in the office. There's that energy that you have with people and being able to have those impromptu peek your head over the cube and have a conversation real quick. So I would say from that corporate aspect, being hybrid is probably the sweet sauce right now. And with the role that I'm in, I think if I had a different role, I would want to be in the office full time. I don't think I'd ever want to be fully remote, to be honest with you, just because there is something about physically being together that makes so much work. And the example that I give is I went to a plant this summer and I had been working with that training supervisor for a couple of months and we've been, meeting and all that. But we made more progress in 1 week than we had in 2 months because I was there. We had some dedicated time. We focused. We were able to get a lot done. And that's why, too. So, all of our plants, they are, in person all day, every day. And we are a 24/7 operation. So, we've got different shifts and different crews that come in. So obviously it's kind of the nature of the role. Because if I was working at the plant, obviously I'd say I'd need to be at the plant every day because in order to do my job, I have to be there. Currently, like I said, in my position that I'm at, I think hybrid's a pretty good sweet spot. But I can foresee too, if I ever get a different role within the company, that, maybe in person every day would be to my benefit.
And do you think that, like, how would you describe your work-life balance with like the hybrid format?
That is a great question. Because sometimes because I am the worst because I spent 10 years teaching, like when you teach, the work that you actually have to do, you do after after your work day and you bring home and you work on the weekends. And so because I spent 10 years doing that, it is hard to break it. And especially, if I'm working from home, typically my hours are 8 to 5, but there are times that I'm on at 6:30 or 7 because I'm up and here's my computer. I may as well get some work done while it's quiet before people start calling me or I have meetings or I'm in the middle of something and I'm just working and it's all of a sudden 6 or 7 p.m. and I'm like, holy guacamole, can't believe that I worked that long. So I will say like there are times where and it's not because of anything my boss wants me to do or the company wants me to do. It's my own. it's my own issue. And that's why too, I think sometimes going in the office is helpful because it's 5 o'clock, everybody's going home. I close my computer and I go home too. And so it's a little bit easier to have those boundaries when you are, working that 8 to 5 in the office. But I will say though, sometimes it is kind of nice because there are certain times that I really can't be interrupted. So working on a Saturday morning when nobody else is online and nobody's in the office, I can actually, get that focus in. But, at the same time, when I do step away from my computer, I am away from it, and able to do that. So that's what's also really nice about the company that I work for. When we take PTO, they want us to take PTO, and you have some of us. Me, me included, that I might be on vacation and I might check my email, or I might call in on that call because I just want to listen in. I am definitely an offender of that. But I will say, in general, our company kind of has that viewpoint. You've got time off, you take it. You're off on your weekends, and those types of pieces. They want us to take care of ourselves because they know if we take care of ourselves, we show up and be the best that we are at work.
Because of the hybrid format, do you guys get to pick what days you go into the office, or is it kind of like a set schedule?
Great question. It depends team by team. So because like really nobody is in Colorado who's on my immediate team, I just kind of pick when I'm like, oh, okay, I've got this meeting in person with some of these other people on a different team. I'll go to the office on that day, or so I have the luxury of just kind of picking the days. Most of the other teams, they set their days as a team. So they say, okay, like I know because a lot of times I overlap with the talent acquisition. We sit close to each other. And so like, one smaller team on talent acquisition might be there like Tuesday, Thursday. The other ones might be there Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever it might be. A lot of times they'll even align like, okay, everybody's going to be here on Thursday, but the other day or two, y'all small teams pick. So that's kind of how that we've set it up so far. Again, I can always see this evolving, right? Because we're just trying to figure out what's the new normal after COVID. And so we'll kind of see how things evolve and what teams end up doing. But the nice thing is the teams got to decide, hey, here's when we're going to be in the office, so that way we can have some collaboration.
That's pretty nice. I like that flexibility for
Yeah, it's great.
Switching gears, what are the most effective strategies for seeking a position in your field?
Oh, that is a great question. The first thing that I always say, and it's kind of a pay it forward because this was advice given to me, and that is to join a professional organization, association. What was recommended to me was to join Association for Talent Development, because it's a bit broad in the training field, and a lot of different types of roles are, join the association. So that's the one that I usually recommend, in the training realm. There are other professional associations out there as well, but I think doing that, it's twofold. One, you've got an instant network of other members, that you can really connect with. But two, it looks good when if you're a member of this type of an association, it looks good in an interview or on a resume. And I'll give a personal example. One of the questions that I had when I interviewed at Ball was like, how do you keep up with your industry? And I said, well, I'm a member of Association for Talent Development, both at the national level and at the chapter level. I'm involved on my board at my chapter level. And so I am constantly, between monthly chapter meetings where we have different programming that we get to learn from each other. And then, I'm able to just almost like Google within my system, with the national level, different, articles that were written, or micro learning videos, different things like that, that I'm able to still stay up with the times, with what's going on in talent development. And so that I felt gave me so much leverage because I mean, especially in the training field, you never stop learning. I mean, really, let's be real. No one ever stops learning. Just because you graduate from a program doesn't mean that you're going to, like, oh, okay, I'm done. No more tests, no more whatever. But, you're constantly need to get better at whatever field you're in or whatever you're doing personally or professionally. And so I think that that professional association can get you started. I don't think that's where you end. I always think that, hey, once you've kind of grown and tapped out of one association, join the other one, or, kind of join a couple so you can see the different perspectives when it comes to training and development. Because with that, that helps you think differently and challenge yourself in the training programs that you have. So that's my biggest recommendation for any job seekers in my field is to join that professional association, because I think that the return on investment would probably be, for me, it's been threefold.
What advice would you give for someone who's pursuing a career in your field or is just graduating?
That is a great question. My biggest piece of advice is to do those informational interviews. Because a lot of times you get some insight like that. Honestly, it became clear to me doing informational interviews of the different fields of training that I could go into. Like, I could go and be, work in training and development at a university, or I could go in manufacturing, or I could go into tech. And so it's really broadening your horizons. And I think for the most part, people won't turn down a coffee or even a virtual call. Everybody's busy, don't get me wrong, but people usually are like, sure, I can hop on for 30 minutes and tell you about my career path and how I got there and what advice I'd have for you. And then two, out of those conversations sometimes might be a job opportunity. And so I mean, here's the thing, you ask 50 people for coffee, even if 10 say yes, you got 10 yeses, right? And so it's kind of like, don't stop trying with that and do those informational interviews. And I can give a personal example. I had applied to Ball Corp. And so I just looked within my ATD network. And I found somebody who also worked at Ball. And I just wanted to know, because I applied to a couple of different manufacturing places, and I just wanted to know what it was like working there, right? From the inside perspective, what do you like about it? And with that conversation, she said, "I actually know your hiring manager, and he wants you to contact him. Here's his email." And I was like, holy guacamole again. I was shocked because I went in just wanting to know about the company, not even thinking that this could end up being an opportunity. And so you never know who knows other people. And so, really going to those networking events, asking for coffee and an informational interview, I think that is. I mean, I know for me, especially moving into a different type of career, really was a game changer. But you never know. There's a power within a network, and connect with people on LinkedIn and see what kind of job titles are out there, via LinkedIn. And from that, that kind of helps whittle down to who you might want to ask for an informational interview.
I mean, I think you got pretty lucky. Like, I'm about to graduate, so I'm looking at the job market right now, and
Hmm.
Hall is one of the companies I am looking at. So
Hmm.
we'll see how that goes. But
Exactly. You never know.
yeah, hopefully I'll get fortunate. But
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, and I will say, like, I love working for Ball. It's got a great culture. I love the sustainability approach. And work, like, I feel so much pride in the products that we make. And it's a really great place to learn and to grow and to be with others.
yeah, I'm really excited. We'll see where my job takes me after
Right?
graduation. But
Exactly. And always remember, you never know. Like, the first one, you might get a no. And maybe 10 years down the line, you get that yes at that company that you want. And that's when it's the right time. Because, yeah, 5, 7 years ago, I wouldn't have been ready.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to let me interview you.
Of course, of course. It was great to chat. I'm glad that we had this time together, and let me know how I can help.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
You too.